All right. NL Central today, boys.
Ooh-wee.
You know what the NL Central has?
The Chicago Cubs.
The reigning World Series champion.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Thank God. We were alive for that.
We were. We witnessed history.
That was the greatest World
did.
Series ever.
That
It was in our dorm. We watched that in our dorm.
When we,
I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but that wasn't just good for watching. It was good for the sport as a whole. That World Series. Very entertaining.
that
I
definitely.
know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but oh my God.
Yeah, so let's jump back into how we got here in the offseason by jumping back to the 2016 standings. Shall we?
Yes.
So as we know, Chicago was the class of the Central, finishing at 103-58, the eventual World Series champs, in 7 games over the upstart Cleveland Indians. St. Louis finished 86-76, missing a wild card spot. Not very characteristic that in this day and age we see St. Louis ever missing the playoffs.
Yeah.
But they succumbed to the wild card between the Giants and Mets, which was eventually won by the Giants. So they were a couple games out of contention, and they beefed up a little bit, hoping to get back to the playoffs. The Pirates finished 78-83. Yeah, you look into some of these games, and the weather was pretty bad, I guess, in the Central, because there's a couple teams here that must have had games against each other, and finished with only 161 games, because I guess if they don't matter to the standings,
I didn't
you
even
don't
know
have to
that.
make them up. Yeah,
I didn't even know that. Wow.
if they don't have implications to a team in contention, like the Cubs had 161 games, but they wrapped up the division, so a game here, a game there wouldn't matter. Same with Pittsburgh. And over to Milwaukee, 73-89. They're in sort of a rebuilding phase, as are the Reds, who finished 68-94. Although their future is bright. Eugenio Suarez is breaking out on the left side. He can play a little bit of short and third. Adam Duvall was a 30-homer hitter. Joey Votto has been an anchor there. They just need a supporting cast there. And then some award winners from the NL Central. Chris Bryant was the NL MVP, a runaway.
Oh, yeah.
Hit 292, 39 dingers, 102 RBI, 121 runs scored. He was a 7.7 win player. Impressive sophomore season for Mr. Bryant. As well as Anthony Rizzo and Jake Arrieta taking home NL Silver Sluggers. If you remember the playoffs, Jake Arrieta actually took Madison Bumgarner deep of the San Francisco Giants for a 3-run home run.
Oh, yeah.
So that
Go,
award
Jakey.
was well-deserved from Arrieta, who's turned himself into a force in a National League lineup. And then from the Cubs, Anthony Rizzo and Jason Hayward took home National League Gold Gloves, as well as Starling Marte for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Nice young talent there in the outfield, huh?
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, last year, I got him in our fantasy draft, but I had to let him go.
You're going to have to.
I made a deal with Lomadou, and I lost Marte. And, I mean, it was just a rough
I'm looking
season.
forward to that, too. I can't wait for that.
We're going to have a
baseball
big,
draft. Yeah.
big. Wow, there's going to be a lot of people playing
You
this
sound
year.
like me now when I go elite.
Elite,
But yeah,
elite.
it's going to be fun. I mean, last year it was a good time. I mean, so was it the football or was it the baseball where you had your big book of stats? That was football,
That was
right?
football.
Yeah.
But
That was
baseball last
hysterical.
year was bad because my laptop, the Wi-Fi just cut off.
Oh,
I
right.
couldn't use it anymore, and I got like 4 auto picks. And
remember
then I
that.
tried to get on my phone and it wouldn't work, and half of my team was picked.
You had a rough 2016 in
I-
terms of fantasy.
I really did. That was my worst year ever. Between baseball and football, I had a horrible year.
Kyle almost brought home a championship.
In what, football?
No, in baseball. Didn't you lose to McStein?
I beat McStein.
Oh, you did?
Ooh,
I did.
the
I
champ.
thought that was the one where you lost to McStein because of
No,
one
I lost
John
that to
Lester pitch.
Perino. Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah, Perino and I have one of the best finals matchups ever. It came down to whip. What a
Oh.
silly stat to lose on.
yeah.
Whip.
But I was watching. John Lester went into the 5th, allowing 2 hits. If he got through the inning clean, I win. He gets the first 2 outs of the inning. Lead off or 2-out walk, evens up the whip category, and then a 3-2 pitch walks, I believe, Yadier Molina, and then they pull Lester. And I texted Perino. I was like, "Well, that's the second time Lester has done this to me in the playoffs." Because in 2014, we're getting way off schedule now, but in 2014, I also had Lester when he was in Oakland A for that rental year.
oh goodness.
Yes, yeah, and I was going into a finals matchup in my league with buddies from high school. John Lester, I need 8 strikeouts out of him to overtake the category. He gives me 7. and then he gets pulled because of pitch count. I don't know why I keep
John
picking
Lester,
him.
God. Come on,
He's
John.
really good in the real playoffs, but he cannot help me come fantasy playoffs. All right, let's get back. All right, regroup.
Yeah.
Heads, hands.
Hands.
All right, to the off season. Let's go to the World Champs. They did more of a. It was more of a depth kind of off season. No big moves in terms of additions for the Cubs. They brought in John Jay from San Diego back in November. Brett Anderson to sort of shore up the back of the rotation. He was brought in from the Dodgers in January. And here's something. I even forgot about this. Wade Davis is a Cub.
Yeah, that too. I forgot about that too.
Way back in December,
Yeah.
that trade was drawn up.
They also signed Koji Uhara
Yep.
to help out the bullpen as well. They're late in games.
Had they been able to keep Chapman somehow, they would have had 3 of the last 4 pitchers to end World Series.
That would have been something.
Uehara threw the final out for the Red Sox in 2013, Davis in 15, and Chapman last year. No, Montgomery.
he got
Mike
pulled.
Montgomery. They do. No, that was it. Yeah, they have Mike Montgomery still, so they have 3 of the last 4 pitchers to throw the final out of the World Series on a roster. Yes, Cole, you mentioned Koji Uehara, and that kind of finished up the Cubs' sort of notable additions. The subtractions is a little, I wouldn't say bigger, but they may feel the loss of a guy like Dexter Fowler, especially when he goes to a
Goes to a
divisional
rival.
opponent.
Yep.
And his comments, man, he totally just put the Cubs on the back burner. I'm ready to win here in St. Louis.
Yeah,
Almost
he
immediately.
went out saying,
Man.
I saw a tweet, he was like, I'm pretty sure he said that he thinks that they're going to win a World Series in St. Louis. Once he got traded, he said, we're going to win this World Series in St. Louis. And that caught me completely off guard because, I mean, you just won a World Series with the Cubs. I mean, you're focusing now on next year already. I mean, you just won a World Series. And now you go to a division rival saying, hey, now we're going to win it. I mean,
Ballsy.
It's big talk.
yeah.
It's all about backing it up.
He's performance.
Gutsy performance, absolutely. They lost Jorge Soler as well, who never really seemed to pan out. He was
Solar power.
Soler power. He's got the big body. He has the potential to be a 25 homer guy.
Yeah.
He's going to take his talents to Kansas City now. He was part of that
Not
Wade
sure.
Davis trade.
Yeah.
One of the key components heading back to the Royals. Jason Hamill, he had a very good year for the Cubs and I don't think he was ever left off. He was never left off a playoff roster, but he was never used. He threw 0 postseason innings, I believe, or at least in the World
we talked
Series.
about that. We were a little surprised about that.
Yeah. So he actually still doesn't have a team. He's a free agent as of today.
Wow.
Nobody's really bit, which surprises me because he's turned himself, once he got out of Colorado where he kind of started becoming a starting pitcher, he was sort of a bullpen, sort of long relief guy when he came up. He started, starting games for the Rockies back in the early 2010s, and you know how that goes. But once he was able to leave there, he was actually a trade component when the Oakland A's went for it all in 2014, bringing in him, Samardzija, and Lester.
Mhm.
And they lost to the eventual Royals in the wild card game. But he's a very formidable, 3-4 starter. And if a team's willing to take a flyer on him come March, maybe in spring training, and need some depth, I think he could be a sneaky, cheap option for a team. David Ross retired. Retired on
Grandpa
top.
Rossi.
Grandpa Rossi retired on top,
Poppy.
hitting a home run off Andrew Miller,
Oh, that bomb to center.
riding into a
I
sunset.
was so happy for him. That was awesome.
Yeah, we all love Grandpa Rossi. I remember,
Just think about that.
yeah.
If he didn't hit that solo home run, they might have lost in 9. They would have been, after the Indians came back there.
You're right.
I still
Sure,
can't. I
sure.
still can't get over that World Series, especially with Raja hitting that home run off of Chapman. Oh my goodness!
That 2-strike approach.
Oh,
Yeah,
how did he
our
even
dorm
get
room was
that
going.
bat out?
Our dorm room was going nuts.
I don't even know how he
To
put that
turn
on
on
the
like a
wall.
100-mile-an-hour fastball like that. Oh my goodness!
And he just stuck his butt out, head out.
Put
and
it over that
just
big
bam,
wall in left field, over at Progressive Field.
line drive.
You know we hit it off of, right?
Oh,
To
yeah.
Chapman.
Yep. He
Yeah.
jumped ship. He's back in
New York.
the Big Apple.
Ooh.
He liked it so much, he went there twice.
Yeah, that's
You know.
something. That's just it's weird. Leaving a team halfway through the season, going to win the World Series in another uniform,
back,
and coming
yeah.
right back.
His
Very-
comments kind of confused me, too. I'm not less of a fan of Chapman because of what he said. But he kind of put Joe Madden down for how he used him in the playoffs.
And you say he used him too much?
He used
I
him
think-
too much.
I mean,
Yeah.
he might have.
Wouldn't you be want to use too much if
True.
you're that?
I mean, I guess when
kind
you're
of
throwing
weapon?
100, I mean, maybe it's a little bit too much stress on your arm, but I mean,
And
If he felt no stress from 2010 until these playoffs, then I don't think it would be any different. Because it's not like he's
has
a
he
new-
had any type of major surgery?
No.
He's got to be one of the only guys recently to be able to throw 100 consistently. Granted, he is a reliever, but to throw 100 consistently and not have any type of surgery, I mean, knock on wood. But
I feel like he might have just been saying that because I think Madden did use him a little aggressively in,
The only
in
one-
Game 6 because then he had to come for Game 7 and
But
he was
see,
kind of gassed.
That's what I was going to
You
say.
know-
The
you
only
know-
use I really did not agree with Madden about was the 7-8 run lead they had in Game 6. Addison Russell blew it open early with a grand slam.
Mhm.
And then that's the only time I would agree with Chapman that he may have been overused. There was nobody else in your bullpen that could have gotten you the last few outs of that game other than Chapman. I understand, take nothing for granted, but
Yeah, I don't know.
But the thing is, you don't see Andrew Miller didn't come out saying, "Hey, Tito used me too much."
mm-mm.
He was
He knew his role.
he was used more than Chapman.
Yeah. The entire Indians bullpen
He
was
was almost-
used more than their starting
He was
staff.
almost turned to a starter coming
Yeah.
in the game against. What was it? He didn't come in
It
when
was against Toronto,
when-
but they had to get
was
8
he the
and a
one that
third
came
innings.
in from Barr when Barr had his
No, he
yeah.
was not immediately, but
No.
he threw the 4th to the 6th or 4th to the 7th because they had to get 25 outs
Yeah.
without Bauer with the
I mean, you
the
gotta
bloody drone
understand.
finger.
You got to understand me where he's coming from because as a reliever, I mean, especially as a closer, you're only thinking I'm only going to come in and pitch one inning and then end up pitching 2 or 3. I mean, yeah, it's got to be tough on a roll this, but
Which is why it was nice to see Miller get traded. If we go back to Cleveland and really understand that he could have more of a role than a one-inning guy, it was nice. It was almost like a throwback to the 70s and 80s when relief pitchers were almost expected to throw 2-3 innings.
that's
Almost,
why I'm saying it
almost
was
like a fireman.
so good for baseball.
Yeah.
It was very, very entertaining. I mean, it's very hard to dislike what happened in the postseason. It's very hard to not be entertained.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's nothing more that you can say about that World Series that it was just so good for baseball when it comes to entertainment.
Let's jump to the Cardinals real quick. They have a pretty short rap sheet on the additions, although they're going to be useful additions. Dexter Fowler, you steal him from the world champ Cubs. Hope to turn the tides there and maybe get a little closer in the standings with Fowler, the switch hitter. Gets on base a lot. Nice little spark plug at the top of the lineup. And Brett Cecil. Cecil got 4 years.
Yeah.
He was the first reliever to fall on the market, and he got a really high price. I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm going to have to look up the actual monetary stipulations that were in that contract, but I know it was 4 years and a very high price, and I was like, man, that's going to set the bar really high because he wasn't even a closer. Melanson, Jansen, and Chapman hadn't even fallen yet, and I think the whole market realized that if we can get a 7th, 8th inning guy, he's going to be, I think it's around $10 million a year he's going to be making for the Cardinals, and he's not even going to be the closer.
Yeah,
So that just opened the
Don't see
floodgates
that
for the
a lot.
likes of Jansen to make almost $16 million a year. Melanson's flirting with 15.5. Chapman's getting about 16 as well. I think they were comparable contracts between him and Jansen. But that just upped the market really high when he was the first one to fall and he set that precedent so high.
Yeah.
Very weird.
Yeah, I was surprised by that 4 year. Not expecting that. I don't know.
Matt Holliday's out of St. Louis too, and you guys are going to get
He's in New York.
to reap the benefits of him potentially as a DH first baseman. What do you guys think of that?
I do like that move.
You like that move?
It's gonna be another
They-
one of those veteran 1
Yeah,
year
they
deals.
need another veteran DH. I mean, with the youth movement in the Bronx, I mean, you got to bring in some type of veteran presence now that you got rid of all the old goofballs. I mean, it's not a crazy move that you see by the Yankees. I mean, they're always known for going out and getting the veteran players like that. But, I mean, I think it's a good move.
Yeah. What else did they do? Cards. I mean,
The Cards also let Brandon Moss go. He went to Kansas City. I think he's better suited in the American League anyway. More of a DH first base, occasional outfield kind of role for him. I think it'll be good.
traded away Jamie Garcia.
Yes, he's a Brave. Now the Braves are going with the old fart approach in the starting rotation. Jaime Garcia's not that old, but he has.
I mean, yeah. I said
It's just
Jamie.
it's just about health with him. He's going to probably fall into the 4 spot. They're going to do something. Nah, maybe Diggy will be 4. The top 3 though is going to be probably Garcia,
Bart.
Bartolo Colon, and Julio
Big
Tehran.
sexy.
With Dickey and maybe
Boy.
Newcomb.
I love it. I love Bart.
I believe Sean Newcomb is their top tier left-handed prospect. He may fall into rotation spot. The way that team is sort of shaping out. 68 wins last year. They're trying to become on the rise, and they brought in Brandon Phillips, who we'll touch on later, his departure from Cincinnati in a trade. They're trying to mix youth with old. Maybe Dansby Swanson can learn a lot from a guy like Phillips playing up the middle for an entire season.
That's going to be a filthy middle infield.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. And then Kyle, their biggest loss. What was it?
Whose biggest loss?
Cardinals.
The Cardinals? Who?
You know.
Do I know?
Cole knows something that Kyle doesn't.
No, he knows. We talked about it last week.
Oh.
The Cardinals' biggest loss.
An arm. They lost an arm.
Who?
Injury.
Oh, yeah, Alex Reyes.
There we go.
That can be considered
There
a
we go.
subtraction, yeah. His time
Yeah,
down.
I mean, I didn't mean that he left the team, but injured. We talked about that. I don't know if we talked about it last week. We did 2 weeks ago, I know.
Brett Cecil, $7.5 million per year.
Ooh.
Wow.
4 years, $30.5 million for a seventh inning man, potentially.
Wow.
Pitching and bridging it to Rosenthal and the final boss, Sang-Hwan Oh, the import from Korea. So they're building a lot of teams these days are going with the three-headed monster bullpen approach. And Cecil's probably going to be the first monster that the National League Central is going to have to face. Rosenthal, and a huge bounce back from him.
Yes.
He was one of the stories for the wrong reasons in 2016, eventually losing his closer role to O from overseas. And the Pirates, we can touch on them very fast, very, very fast. They added Daniel Hudson, who's going to be a good relief arm from Arizona in free agency. He was one of those starter projects that kind of went south. So now he's a bullpen arm, and he's been doing pretty well in a pretty tough ballpark to pitch in, especially when you have the likes of Colorado in the same division, and San Diego's fences being moved in seemingly every year. It's becoming more and more hitter friendly there in the NL West, and he was able to do a pretty good job out there against some high tier opponents. And the Pirates lost Jeff Block, who signed with Miami, and Sean Rodriguez, who unfortunately is going to miss basically the entirety of 2017. He was involved in a car crash from, I believe, a stolen police car hit him. Wow. And now he had to have shoulder surgery, and he's out probably 4 to 5 months because of one of the weirdest stories in recent memory. A stolen police car hit Sean Rodriguez, and he's going to miss the entire season after signing with a new ball club, which is part of the reason why they went out and traded for Brandon Phillips. If you think about it.
Yeah.
Weird stuff, man.
Crazy.
All right.
Stolen police
All
car.
right. All right. It's stat time, boys.
Stat time.
The Brewers.
Stat time.
Very interesting moves this offseason. Let's start off with some additions for the Brewers, who finished at 73 and 89. They've been trying to sell Ryan Braun for, it seems like, 2, 3, 4 years now. They still haven't found a suitor to take on his contract, but maybe this is a year they get a huge boatload of prospects in return for Braun. But as of now, he's going to be the headliner for the Brewers, as well as bringing in Travis Shaw, who was an upstart first baseman / outfielder for the Boston Red Sox last year. He fell off towards the end of the season, but he was able to play a pretty solid third base after Pablo Sandoval's fall from grace. And he had a very nice 2016. It turns it into a trade to a National League ball club. Maybe kind of rejuvenate himself. Tali Feliz. Remember that name? Remember that guy back in Texas?
In Milwaukee.
Yeah, he brought him from Pittsburgh just last month. And Java Chamberlain. The Java rules. Do you remember the Java rules? Do you?
What did he do? Tear his ACL jumping on a trampoline with his kids?
Well, that, but I think we're past that.
Java. Oh, man. I used to love that, man.
Yeah, I think Milwaukee's going to be another sort of ball club that relies on one-year deals. Maybe these guys go out and have solid campaigns, much like the A's, the Athletics we talked about last year in Oakland. A couple of guys on one-year contracts that have had solid track records that maybe they can turn into a prospect here or something along those lines as they continue to rebuild as well in Milwaukee. But they may not have to rebuild because even though they lost Chris Carter, they have a Korean thumper now signed for 3 years named Eric Thames.
Eric Thames.
Remember Eric Thames? Not many people do. He had a brief 2-year Major League career from 2011 to 2012 between Toronto and Seattle. That did not go very well. So he chose to take his talents overseas. Let's jump right into this. I'm about to blow you away with what he did in the Korean League.
Okay.
All right, so Thames' career over 2 Major League seasons. Very, almost bench-like Major League seasons. He was never really a starter. He hit .250, 21 total homers, 62 total RBI, got on base at a .296 clip, and slugged .431. All right. Okay, I still don't believe these stats, what he did in Korea. In his career for the NC Dinos in 3 seasons, he averaged hitting .349 a season.
Yeah.
He averaged getting on base 45.7% of the time. He averaged slugging .721.
Even better. Keep it rolling.
In 390 games, he had 472 hits, 102 of those going for doubles, 14 for triples, 124 for home runs, 382 RBI, so nearly an RBI per game, 64 stolen bases, 40 of which came in 1 season. He was a 40-40 player in 2015.
What?
And 974 total bases. In 2014, he hit .343, had 37 homers, 121 RBI, 427 OBP, and slugged .688. 2015, he got better. He hit .381. Had 47
That's
dingers.
Sick.
Please stop.
47 dingers.
Please stop.
140 RBI. He got on base at a .503 clip.
Please just stop.
He slugged .790.
Please stop.
7.
And he stole 40 bases.
Oh my.
Please stop.
2016. He hit
I don't wanna hear
.321.
it. I don't want to hear it.
40 homers, 121 RBI, 433 on base percentage, and he slugs the Fetty Wap like .679.
All right, I'm going to stop you there with the Fetty Wap reference.
Was that just a terrible ending?
That was very terrible.
This man played in 3 seasons in Korea for an average annual salary of $1.25 million with a signing bonus of $50,000.
Please stop.
Wow.
Putting up those kind of numbers.
Stop.
I realize it's a different game.
It is.
And I realize, the pay's not the same over there. It's not the same caliber of Major League Baseball. He turned those 3 seasons in the Korean League to a 3-year, $45+ million contract with the Milwaukee Brewers.
That's intense. You want to know what he said after that? He probably like, taking my talents to Milwaukee.
That's probably what he said. What a
Korea to
story.
Milwaukee.
What a story.
That
What
is
an odd
funny.
human.
Reinventing
Yeah,
himself.
strange.
He almost hit 50 home runs.
What an odd
And they have a much more. They don't play 162 games over there.
How many do they play?
I believe it's around 130, 140. He averaged about 122, 123 games played a season. Just add on 40 to that, Cole. Imagine the numbers you could have put up if they played a Major League schedule with that competition. These numbers are video game-like. And even at that, it's hard.
Show.
That will be the show. Shout out Lumadoo.
Shout out Dan
What do with the
Lumadoo.
show?
We got to ask him if he ever put up these kind of numbers. He probably did.
Of course
Probably.
you did.
Probably did. He's probably at 99 right now.
Probably hit like 60 home runs.
That is ridiculous. I want to see if this rejuvenation of his career, if this newfound confidence in the Korean League
Comeback player of the year.
is gonna turn out to be boding well in 2017 because he was a bench role player at most during his previous stint in the major leagues. Now he's 30. Now he's got this crazy amount of confidence. Like, oh my gosh, could you imagine the swag he's gonna walk into Miller Park with on opening day?
Yeah. Can you get comeback player of the year coming from overseas? Is that a thing?
Well, we might find out.
We will find out.
That is unbelievable.
All right, well, Roto Champ, I'm looking at it right now. They have him projected for 20 home runs, 77 RBI, and batting .263 with a .334 on-base percentage and a .447 slugging.
That all outdoes his career outputs beforehand by a wide margin. If he hits 20 homers, he would have already doubled his previous output after not playing Major League Baseball for 5 seasons.
9 stolen bases.
Yeah, well, I mean, 40 of them came in one season. He had 64, so I mean, on average, 9 would sound. I don't know where he got the speed to just steal 40. I don't know if he just got bored. He's like, I'm just going to steal bases this year.
Bored, yeah.
My goodness.
Right. Sounds about right.
Oh,
Go
man.
Brewers. Go Brewers.
All right, I got to get off the hype train. I got to finish up the Reds. All right.
Reds.
Oh, the Reds. The Reds brought in some interesting players. Desmond Jennings is a Red now. I know you guys, being Yankee fans, probably watched a lot of him when the Yankees either brought in or were visiting Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're allowed to have opinions on the show. I really never thought he panned out as much as he could have. He was always one of those guys. I mean, you go back to fantasy baseball, he really just got under my skin because I never really think he was a very good offensive producer. And for the first few years of his career, he was always projected like 30th or 40th in fantasy rankings. And I was like, why? It always stuck with me. I just didn't like Desmond Jennings because he could have been such a good player. He has all the tools. He was like a right-handed young Carl Crawford coming back in Tampa. He had the speed, he had the power, he had the throwing arm. He was going to play a little bit of left field just like Crawford, mix in some great base running, a little bit of center field. Just could not put it all together. And hey, maybe this year on a 1-year contract in a city, in an environment that doesn't expect much from him, maybe he can make something out of this and kind of revive his career, because it's not dead yet. He's still in his prime. He's still about 28 years old. But
maybe a new location.
Yeah. That's probably,
Location.
And then Ryan Rayburn brought in from Colorado. This is just a depth move. They're trying to still get the young guys in the outfield a lot of at-bats, but Rayburn's going to be a good bench bat for Cincinnati. Scott Feldman's going to be an innings eater. They tried to...
Juice Thorne?
Yes. They tried to bring back Bronson Arroyo, too. Remember reading that story, Connor?
I love that leg kick.
Oh, man.
They did, didn't they?
I don't think they did. Did they?
No.
No. You're on the Brewers,
someone
so.
did. Wait, what are we looking at?
No, they did. No, I did not see him in their projected rotation.
He is in the rotation on this.
Not on this one.
In their transactions, it said that he came in.
Bullpen.
Signed to a minor league contract. Like last week.
Oh, maybe that went under the radar.
2 weeks ago.
So I don't see it on RotoChamp, but I trust you. You're on, what is that?
I think Cincinnati could be a good destination for Drew Storen to kind of get a year away from competitive baseball. You don't want to ever be away from the playoff spotlight, but I think a guy like him who's had some real frightening moments in the playoffs for the Nationals, I think that's still sticking with him.
Yeah.
He's had a tumultuous career. He was on the mound when the Cardinals rallied back in the 9th inning from 7-5 down in Game 5 of the 2012 NLDS to take a 2-run lead. He was the pitcher who gave up the 2-run single to Pete Kozma, which the St. Louis Cardinals eventually took that series and were taken out by the Giants in the NLCS. But that stuck with him, and then the Nationals didn't make the playoffs in 2013. He was not as effective. 2014, they were back in the spotlight, and then in Game 2, I believe, of the NLDS, that game that went... Do you remember that game at all? It went 18 innings.
Kind of.
Jordan Zimmerman went 8 2/3 shutout baseball of the Giants.
Yeah.
Nationals nursed a 1-0 lead. Matt Williams got a little too finicky for his own liking and was playing matchups. Brought in Drew Storen for the final out because he thought Zimmerman must have been gassed or something like that. Pablo Sandoval gashes a double down the left field line. Thankfully, Buster Posey got thrown out by Ian Desmond at the plate. Thankfully, not thankfully, because it kind of dictated the rest of the series. But 9 innings later after that, Brandon Belt homers off Tanner Roark after the Drew Storen blow-up in the 9th inning. And then 2015, obviously, in comes Papelbon when Drew Storen's having a great season as a closer. The Nationals, I think, have that on the back of their mind because they were in a playoff spot when they made the trade for Papelbon in July. They bring him in. That ends with a whole frenzy of who's going to throw the 9th inning, who's going to throw the 8th inning. Drew Storen was actually effective that year. They probably didn't have to get Papelbon. that season culminates with missing the playoffs and Jonathan Papelbon strangling Bryce Harper in his eventual
Good
MVP
times.
season. And then
Team fighting.
Storen jumps ship to Toronto in the Ben Revere deal in 2015 offseason. Ben Revere battles through injuries in 2016. Drew Storen ineffective in the American League. Then he is dealt to Seattle for Joaquin Benoit because Benoit was was an older arm, but had experience in the playoffs with Detroit. They send Storen to Seattle. Seattle misses the playoffs. Storen becomes a free agent, and now after this crazy road, 5 years later, here he is in Cincinnati in an environment that actually may bode well for him for a little bit of confidence. In my eyes. Because the guy's had a rocky start to his playoff career, and maybe if he can sort of build up his own resume again and his confidence, and maybe if Cincinnati is there a couple years from now and he has a good enough season, they bring him back, or he does well, turns it into a contract next year with a playoff hopeful, who knows. But I think for Storen, he needs a little bit of a more, not relaxing year, but something where he can ease back into a late inning role. If that makes any sense.
It does. I'm with you on that. It makes sense. Kind of take some pressure off. Get back into it, like you said.
All right, good. Because I was kind of doing that on the fly, but I knew about all the postseason stuff, and I was like, I think Cincinnati would actually benefit Storen just for a confidence sort of aspect. And their only real subtraction was recently, on February 12th, when Phillips waived his no-trade clause and headed to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Which is probably necessary.
Yeah.
For both sides. Because it boggled my mind last year when he wasn't willing to waive his no-trade clause to go to Washington, which ended up, in the long run, benefiting the Nationals because they were able to sign Murphy right before Christmas. And he went out and had finished second place in the MVP, hitting nearly 350, 25 bombs, 104 RBI. It turned out to be a blessing in disguise for the Nationals not getting Phillips. But, no matter what time it was going to come, I think it was time for him to get out of Cincinnati because for 2 years now they've been nursing a pretty good prospect in Jose Peraza, who they needed to make space for somehow, and they were just waiting for some compliance with Phillips because of the no trade. So they weren't able to bring up Peraza last year because Phillips wanted to stay in town, and now I think Phillips at 36 is finally seeing the writing on the wall. So now he can go be a mentor to Dansby Swanson, and it's a best of both worlds because now there's a free spot for spring training for a prospect that could be a potential second baseman for the future for Cincinnati.
With you. They also, Homer Bailey got put on the 60-day DL too to start the year.
What?
Yeah.
Oy vey.
So that takes a hit on their starting rotation.
It's hard to believe that through all the injuries that man has had through his career, he's actually had 2 no-hitters.
Yeah.
He threw one against Pittsburgh at the end of 2012, and then in 2013 he no-hit the Giants. In a span of like a calendar year. It was between seasons, but insanity. So that was our very extensive wrap-up in the NL Central. I guess the question that's left is the 2017 outlook. And honestly, guys, are we going to see any change in this division?
That's another thing. I don't think there's going to be any change in the standings, really. It's really all just going to be the Cubs again dominating. The Cubs are arguably going to be fighting for another World Series ring. I think they're probably the best team in baseball going into the 2017 season. I mean, obviously they're the best team in baseball from last season because they won the World Series, but I really don't see any change in these standings when it comes to the end of the 2017 season in October.
Yeah, I see the Cubs dominating again. Cardinals maybe not too far behind. I think they'll be in the driver's seat for a wild card spot along with the Giants.
I'm going to stick to my word about 3 teams from the West making the.
That's fair.
Making the wild or making
I'm
playoffs.
thinking like the Rockies and Giants.
Rockies, Giants making a wild card. Dodgers locking up a division.
Yeah.
So then, who do you knock out of the East?
I think the Nationals will. Well, I don't want to jump to it because we didn't get there yet.
Right,
but I think the Nationals will probably get that division.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think that's going to be the wild card. I mean, I don't want to count out the Pirates because they look like they'd have a decent lineup. It just comes on the pitching, I think, for them. I think they have a fighting chance. I don't think they'll get a wild card, but they should have a fighting chance in the battle for wild card, which will be between San Francisco,
The pitching
St. Louis, Colorado, and maybe the Mets.
The pitching's really thin
Yeah.
in Pittsburgh right now. they've had all these renaissance projects over the last few years between bringing back A.J. Burnett and the things he did, the likes of J.A. Happ as well. And now they're kind of relying on Garrett Cole coming back from injury, which is a pretty safe bet. But after that, it's kind of up in the air. And the only one they really have signed that can really give them serviceable innings is the emergence of Ivan Nova. Yankee fans remember him.
Coming over from New York.
Yeah. So yeah.
Plus they're down Melanson now, who's been through 2 teams since July between the Nationals and now the Giants. I think their closing favorite is going to be Tony Watson.
Yeah. Yep. That's who RotoChamp has as their projected closer. Projected for 27 saves with a 3.39 ERA.
It's respectable for a soft throwing. Well, not soft throwing, but he's not an upper 90s left-hander. He's got a really good sinker.
Yeah, he's sits at 93.
Yeah.
I like RotoChamp. I really do. Gives you a lot of information.
Good. Thank you, RotoChamp, and thank you, Roster Resource, for helping sort of mold the backbone of this segment, mixed in with some opinionation and previous knowledge. But that about wraps up the Central here. We're going on about
break.
3:45. We'll hit you with a break, and then we
wrap
got
it up.
some miscellaneous, some potpourri. We got a lot of
news and notes. Trade deadline.
NHL trade deadline is less than 24 hours away. We have some new free agency news breaking from the NFL. We have franchise tags left and right. We have extensions. We had a lot of news yesterday while we were out at Delaware Park that we broke. We were checking our phones. A lot of big money being thrown around in the National Football League. So,
including JPP.
Including JPP.
Cole's shaking his head right now. Cole's very upset.
Well, we will
get. I'm upset, but we'll get to it.
Yeah, that's a nice little teaser. We'll get to it. All right, so we will be back after this quick break. Thanks to Kesha.
Welcome back. What's up, Connor? Ready to talk some trade deadline?
Hey, Cole. Yes, I am very ready.
Go ahead.
Very ready. So
shoot my shooting star.
We talked about this on Puck Chat on, what was it, Friday? Thursday?
Yes.
Friday. Very exciting time of the year. And things are already starting to heat up. They started heating up on, I think it actually was Friday. It was when the first decent move was made.
Eves.
Yeah, because we broke the Patty Eves trade on the air. And then Saturday and Sunday, things started heating up a little bit more. Let me scroll down here a little bit. It started off the really big one 2 days ago was Tampa Bay. First off, we talked about this a lot, how Ben Bishop was on the block looking to move him because they can only protect 2 goalies at the expansion draft. And Andrei Vasilevsky right now is their go-to. He's a very young, going to be a very good goaltender in the National Hockey League. And they're giving him the realm for the starting job. But anyway, Tampa Bay traded away Ben Bishop and a 5th-round pick in 2017 to the LA Kings for Peter Buda, Eric Cernak, and a 7th-round pick in a conditional 2017 draft. So, huge move for LA. LA, I think it's a smart move for the present. I mean, obviously, I don't see them holding on to Ben Bishop after the season, especially with the expansion draft. But this is really going to help their playoff push. I think they're only 2 points out of a wild card right now. They're probably not too far out of the division either. But they want to give Jonathan Quick a little bit more time to recover and be 110% and not get him back into game action. So Quick, no pun intended, he went down with a groin injury, I believe it was.
First game of the season.
Mm-hmm. First game of the season, he went down with a groin injury, and he's been out ever since. He was actually activated again this weekend, or it might have been a couple days before the weekend broke. And so they're going to give Jonathan Quick a little bit of, a little bit more off time, as much as he needs, and they're going to give Ben Bishop a couple of starts, try and help their playoff push. It's really smart when you think about it, because they want a number 1 goaltender to try and help them make the playoffs. So they go out and get Ben Bishop, and honestly, they got him for almost nothing. They gave up Peter Buda, and then a defensive prospect and a 7th-round pick. That could be conditional and turn into something more in the 2017 draft. We have to look more into what the conditions are, but what do you think about that?
Well, you and I were talking about this trade, and it does make complete sense. You don't want to rush Jonathan Quick back and then have him gassed after 4 or 5 months out of hockey, game speed. If they are able to make a playoff run, it's almost a embarrassment of riches to have the likes of Bishop and Quick to be able to turn to at any given moment in a playoff matchup or down the stretch. But the thing we talked about most, aside from the trade, no matter how one-sided it may seem, it was kind of sad.
Yeah.
Budai's been that backbone of the King sort of machine this year.
Yeah, we did talk about that a lot. How
not so much that they threw him to the wolves, but he's the reason that they're even this close to contention.
Having a crazy year at such an old age, coming back. I mean, I believe he's 37, maybe 36. Could be older than that. I got to double check on that, but he's given a lot to this team, stepping up, being the starting goaltender for almost the whole year with Quick going down, and it is kind of sad to see because he's given so much to the team, and then he's only 34. But still, well past his prime. I mean, he's like I said, they're only 2 points out of a wild card, I believe. And to dish him off to Tampa Bay for a number one goaltender, it is sad to see, but it is very good by LA. But that's not the only move that Tampa Bay has made. They also dished off Brian Boyle to Toronto for a conditional second-round pick in the 2017 draft. And this is just some more, veteran defensive presence at the blue line for Toronto. And this is what, we were talking about how Toronto has, the huge youth movement when it comes to Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, Nylander, and company. That they need a little bit more veteran presence. Brian Boyle has that playoff experience. Probably hope to point these guys in the right direction, step them, be a leader in the locker room and on the ice. So I think that's a good move also by Toronto. But it is a little shaky because they gave up a second-round pick in this year's draft. Granted, they won't have that good of a spot if they do make the playoffs in the draft, but that's what they're built on. Is the reason why their team is this good right now is because of the draft. So
the return that Tampa got for Boyle was all precedented from the day before with the Arizona trade. The price that Arizona was able to get back out of Minnesota really kind of dictated how much Brian Boyle's worth was, because Martin Hanzal and Ryan White got Arizona a first-rounder, a second-rounder, and a conditional from the Wild.
Yeah, that
pretty high price.
That was unreal. And again, we talked about this a little bit, how Minnesota, they are built around that veteran presence, but they did need depth when it came to forwards, and they get playoff experience out of both Martin Hanzal and Ryan White. So that's a big move by Minnesota. They already have a very comfortable wiggle room in their division. No doubt they'll make the playoffs unless, God forbid, something crazy happens. But that is something that they needed. So, again, another great move by another team in the NHL. Not a big one, but a sad one. Jordy Ben got sent off to Montreal for Greg Pattern and a fourth-round pick. Jordy Ben has played with his brother Jamie Benn. I'm pretty sure for all of Jamie Benn's career. I'm pretty sure Jordy Ben's been there.
Yeah.
For his whole career. So they're brothers. Jordy Ben got sent off. We wish him the best. And then also on the same day, Alexander Burrows got sent to Ottawa. That's another good move. And there's been so many good moves. And the next one we're going to get to, which is even crazier.
Not what we expected in the slightest.
Not what we expected, but a good move by Ottawa to go out and get another, I wouldn't even say role player. He's a pretty skilled hockey player. Definitely can throw him on the second or third line and add to that offense that they already have. But it's another one of those under the radar skilled hockey players that that Ottawa is built around. So it is a good move, but I don't think they'll be done yet at the deadline. Same thing with maybe Tampa and maybe even Minnesota. They've been getting in talks with a bunch of other teams as well. But then the big fish in the sea, the biggest free agent at the end of the year, they were talking about as a rental player, Kevin Shattenkirk actually got moved yesterday as well. The St. Louis Blues traded defenseman Kevin Shattenkirk and goalie Phoenix Copley. I did not know Copley was in that as well until now.
Told you about that. I was like, the kicker. The kicker of the deal. Phoenix Copley.
Huge.
Yeah.
Anyway, they sent them to the Capitals for a 2017 first-round pick and conditional picks and forwards Zach Sanford and Brad Malone. Huge move for Washington. If we had to talk about a weak spot in Washington, it would have to be their defense, which really isn't even that weak because, like we said, to have good goaltending, you have to have good defense, and they have arguably one of the best goaltenders in the NHL with Braden Holtby. So to add Kevin Shattenkirk to that defense is unreal. I mean, everybody's critiquing him a little bit, saying, "Oh, look at they're going out and making this big move, getting the biggest trade piece at the deadline, just so they can lose in the second round or the first round again." But I don't know if I see that happening again. I mean, it's definitely going to be tough if they run into Pittsburgh again, and that's going to make for a heck of a series, especially now getting Shattenkirk. And there was so many weird conditions when it came to that conditional pick.
Yes.
It was, one of them was, I believe it was a third rounder, and it would get bumped up to a second rounder if Kevin Shattenkirk plays in 50% of the playoff games, or if they move him by July 1st, then that also gets bumped up to a second rounder. It was just a bunch of weird conditions, and it's very mind-blowing to think that there's that many conditions that go into trading away a draft pick.
Right.
Scroll up. That was it for really the big moves, but today has been buzzing with a bunch of trade rumors. Sabres made a minor move, trading away Dan Catanassi for a depth defenseman in the AHL to the New York Rangers. And there's been a lot of talks about Kulikov, Franzen, and even possibly Evander Kane leaving Buffalo. I'm checking on that. Matt Duchene is top landing spot right now from the Avalanche would be the New York Islanders right now. And that is unbelievable to think that. We were even talking about this too, because this was even getting brought up last time on Puck Chat. That we were talking about that to have the duo of Matt Duchene and Johnny T possibly playing on the same line is just unthinkable.
You can move Tavares at a wing at that point, because if you brought in Duchene, you would be bringing in the top face-off man in the league.
Exactly, and that's unbelievable to have two players of that caliber playing on the same line together. That's unbelievable. What else? I'm trying to
Sanford seemed... I'm just looking into Sanford's career, and he seemed, when the news broke last night, he seemed to be the headliner. He was the guy that got the fame, at least, on Twitter for the... there was two prospects, and it was Sanford and Brad Malone. I'm looking into Sanford. He has a body. He's 6'4". He's a big skater, and he's only 22 now. But in terms of his NHL career, he hasn't played that much of a role in Washington. He has 3 points in 26 games, 23 shots, and less than a shot per game. It's going to be interesting to see how St. Louis uses a young skater like that in the future to pair with, Tarasenko is still in his prime, and then some of their older skaters. Berglund's had a breakout campaign. He worked that into a 5-year extension. It's just going to be interesting to see how potentially a change of scenery for a young guy like this. It's definitely going to be a shell shock to say that you were once one of the trade pieces to bring Shattenkirk into a place that drafted you in the second round. Definitely a story moving forward. But hey, all the best to him. We'll see how St. Louis uses him. Honestly, the way he pans out and his stats in the AHL are favorable. It just maybe, I don't think Washington ever had a lack of depth to really need him.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I don't want to toot my own horn here, but you were my witness.
Yeah.
And I called this one. We were talking about a bunch of teams that were getting mixed in with the NHL trade buzz. And then I talked about a player who's not even in the NHL right now because of all the weird things that have happened in the island. But Yaroslav Halak has been tossed around with a bunch of teams. And
3 as of noon.
3 as of noon today, and I believe it was Calgary, Boston, and who's the other team? Edmonton. Calgary, Boston, Edmonton were the 3 that I saw. And Calgary needs it. Boston kind of needs it. Edmonton could use a backup. But Yaroslav Halak was sent down in the AHL in spite of giving Thomas Greiss the starting role in New York. They would be letting go, I believe, about $4 million in cap, which would be good, which would help with getting Duchene and then signing him long term. I believe, is he still on an entry level?
Who's that?
Duchene?
I don't think so. I'll look it up.
Well, either way, they would be clearing up cap if they did get Matt Duchene, so that would be huge for New York. And Halak has been a proven goaltender in the NHL. He's had a rough start to the year and just controversy when it came to goaltending in New York.
4.6.
Yeah, Matt Duchene is not on entry. Okay, he's making 4.6.
Actually, $6 million with the
$6 million cap, including the bonus. Okay. Yeah, so they would be clearing up cap if they got rid of Halak to possibly bring in Duchene. So that would be huge. So we're talking about the jumping Islanders when it comes to the standings. So it would be huge if they could really reel in Matt Duchene. And yeah, I talked about this the other day. How Halak is 14-2-1 with a .933 save percentage and a 1.91 goals against average in the AHL right now. So, it is the AHL, but it's not something you can overlook. He would still make for a decent backup, helping teams along the stretch going into the playoffs.
With a face like that, too.
Oh yeah, he's beautiful.
Oh, he's very
cute.
Yeah, we got just about 23 hours.
Yeah,
until
23
the deadline.
23 hours until the deadline. Very excited. One of the more exciting times of the year when it comes to hockey. Sad time of the year for players as well. Can't bad say bye to Brian Boyle. That was a very emotional one. Hansel saying goodbye to Shane Doan. Hansel looked up to Shane Doan. That was a very emotional interview for Shane Doan. So, but we wish them all the best. Shane Doan would like to get traded only if it was going to a possible cup contender. But he put out a statement saying he's not going to leave just for the sake of leaving. He wants to win. He wants to get a cup, and you got to respect his decision for that. He's been in Arizona his whole life. So, yeah.
Hey, how big is that fish? Earlier you said
Is it as
it's the
big
biggest
as
fish in the
JPP's,
sea. How big's the fish?
Pretty big. He's like what's a big fish?
tuna?
I was gonna say tuna.
It's about as big as Jason Pierre-Paul's wallet. How's that?
Yeah, Cole. You want before we cut this show? I'm gonna touch on some football news. Franchise tagging JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, New York Giants franchise tag. What was it like? An average? It was like a $14.7 million contract.
This man has like 7.5 fingers.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he's making that much money. Like, I love him because of what he did coming onto the scene back in 2011, 2012, winning the Super Bowl, but like, it's at the point now where, I mean, he's still productive. Well, he's got a club on his hand. It's easy for him to reach up and swat balls down, but I feel like our money could definitely go to better places, like the offensive line. I don't know.
Hey, wouldn't you
Kinda
know
ridiculous.
it, too? Wouldn't you know it that not a day after you franchise tag a guy like that, who else becomes a free agent? But Adrian Peterson.
The Vikings decided not to make a deal with him, so he's a free agent. See what happens there. I know he has showed interest in New York.
And
New York, Tampa Bay.
I want to touch on not only I don't know if I would call it ignorant, but I don't know if you guys have checked Twitter recently, but we got the update, and I think 2 minutes after I went on Twitter and I saw Kirk Cousins tweeted, "Tag, I'm it."
Yeah, I saw it.
Kirk Cousins got franchise tagged by the Washington Redskins for the second year in a row. Correct?
Yeah.
For the second year in a row.
The Steelers tagged Le'Veon Bell, and they also signed Antonio Brown to the highest contract as a receiver in the league. So he's the highest paid wide receiver.
That's unreal. So much
and
money.
then the Chiefs just
Released Jamal Charles.
They did, and they signed Eric Berry. He's now the highest paid safety in the league.
So much money getting tossed around.
Yeah. All this money. Money, money, money.
Controversy with the Bills, too. Did you hear about them not talking about, but the rumors of releasing LaShawn McCoy? They got me fired up.
LaShawn McCoy?
Yes.
Yes,
And-
I like that.
Yeah, because I saw all these talks on Twitter saying that Eagles fans are going bananas.
I am. Because
Yeah.
it's like the perfect storm. Could you imagine if Buffalo cut McCoy and then Macklin and Jackson are also in the free agent market out of Kansas City and Washington?
Get the band back
Get
together.
the band back together. Get the boys back.
No, if that happens, then I'm jumping
Could you
ship.
imagine?
I'm jumping
You go
ship
from like
and becoming an Eagles fan if that happens, because if
bring
they
the boys back. with
LaShawn
Wentzy,
McCoy
the
is
Wentz
this
wagon.
offense. LaShawn McCoy is this offense.
Well, now he could be Wentz's best friend.
Okay, but the reason behind all these reporters saying that possibly cutting LaShawn McCoy is A, for cap reasons, and B, apparently he doesn't fit Sean McDermott's scheme for offense.
Get him out of there.
Which I don't understand is,
My.
I understand coaches would like to have certain schemes and stuff like that, especially when they're first coming in, but if you look at a team like Buffalo and see that they have the number one rushing attack, why would you change that?
Maybe he favors Gillisley.
Mike Gillisley.
I understand, but
Touchdown, Mike.
it makes my head go crazy. That and the fact that I'm still waiting on a decision of what in the heck they're going to do with Tyrod.
Taylor.
TT.
Because I'm going to say this for all the haters, too. If you think that getting rid of Tyrod and doing something else is our best option right now, then you are crazy. You are out of your mind and you don't know football. There is no better option right now when it comes to winning right now than keeping Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, if they don't keep him, that's going to be just another couple of years of disappointment.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more years of disappointment.
As much as he's not a quality QB right now, he's
people
still
want to
the
go out
best
and,
chance
and
of
get
winning.
and get a quarterback in the first round, but you never know what's going to happen with that. You never know. You could draft what would be the number 1 ranked quarterback in the first round and make him your starter, and he could flop.
You can get a Vince Young.
Vince Young, Johnny Manziel.
You can get a Johnny
exactly.
Manziel.
I don't trust
went
that.
back to court today again.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did.
That man needs
I don't trust that. I don't trust giving Cardell the realms just yet. I do think that he could be a decent quarterback in the future, but
Tony
he's not ready.
Romo,
I don't want Tony
Jay
Romo
Cutler.
or Jay Cutler.
Why?
Come on, Jay Cutler's a great quarterback. Just kidding.
I'm gonna walk out of the room right in a minute. I'll have to just walk out.
Hey.
What if LaShawn McCoy's running doesn't fit McDermott's scheme? How about he's a new quarterback?
Make Shady the QB.
Run Wildcat every play.
Cole,
Don't even pass the
Cole,
ball.
you're about to get tackled.
Don't even pass the ball.
You're gonna get tackled.
Run every play.
Just run the Wildcat every
Up
play.
that scheme.
Uh-huh. Up that scheme, Kyle.
Unreal.
Football.
How about Antonio Brown's extension, too?
Yeah, we talked about that. The highest paid for a receiver in the NFL.
I think that's due.
A lot of controversy too. I mean, you talk about that, and then him being the highest paid, and everybody says, "Oh, what about Julio Jones?"
Yeah, well, Julio.
All right, who is the best wide receiver or better wide receiver, Julio Jones or Antonio Brown?
Oh, man.
The better wide receiver. I think it's Julio Jones.
Damn you!
Sorry, but overall, and just using, and I don't know, Antonio
Using?
Brown, like he returns punts too. He's just electric. But I think overall the best.
You're telling me that
Wide
Julio
receivers,
Jones is not
yeah.
electric?
He is,
Boogie,
but
woogie,
in a
woogie,
different
woogie.
way. Antonio Brown.
I think
is
Julio
very
Jones
electric.
I
is
just think
the-
he's less flashy.
I think Julio Jones is the best wide receiver in the NFL.
I agree.
Well, when are we gonna do puck chat?
I don't know.
We're gonna have to do it tomorrow at some point.
Oh, and speaking of Buffalo, how many more people are just gonna be like, draft Chad Kelly,
He's not.
bring him to Buffalo?
He didn't even
He's
qualify for
from
the combine.
Buffalo. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I don't know how many times I've heard that from Buffalo fans. They're like, just bring Chad Kelly here, man, because he's from Buffalo.
Said it as a joke, but I don't think he's the answer either. If Jim Kelly couldn't get us a Super Bowl, I don't think Chad Kelly can either.
Well then, optimism over here in the booth. A lot of it.
So we're probably gonna have to do
Go
a
Buffalo.
trade deadline edition of Puck Chat tomorrow because we leave on Thursday, and we would be crunched for time on Thursday.
When's your haircut appointment?
3.
Ooh, haircut.
That's when the deadline is.
Oh no,
Connor!
Connor.
You can't get your haircut.
Kyle says Connor cannot get his haircut. Oh.
Sorry,
Come on, man!
We can do the show at 3:30 after everything's done.
You're not going to get back in a half hour?
Yeah, well,
Don't both of you have to get a haircut?
yeah, we're both getting it at the same time. Why are we talking about this on the air? All right,
'Cause it's
we'll
fun.
figure it out and we'll get back to you. But
Okay. Is that it?
yeah, that's about it. That wraps it up for last episode before Florida.
Yeah, it was a good day.
Might be
A
doing this in
poolside
Florida
chat.
next week. Yeah,
It was a good day though.
I
We
believe
got
our
to
off
bring
day
in
is on
Johnny
Tuesday.
Belton.
Our off day is on Tuesday, I believe.
Great.
next week. Don't quote me on that though.
Okay, I won't.
All right, I'm Connor.
Cool.
And KP.
KP, that dude KP.
That dude KP.
So
Signing off.
Tune in for next week. Beyond the Box Score here at WMCB The Fuse.